Someone is telling a story about you. You can tell by the way they're pointing, fork in hand, building toward the punchline. And everyone at the table already knows where it's going. It's one of yours, one of the definitive ones. The story that gets told when someone wants to explain who you are to a person who doesn't know yet. The room is warm. There's that specific kind of laughter that only happens when people have known each other long enough to finish sentences. You're sitting there, you're smiling. You laugh exactly when you're supposed to. And somewhere in the middle of it, somewhere between the setup and the part where everyone turns to look at you, you realize you don't recognize the person they're talking about. It starts small. So small you don't even call it anything. You're scrolling through a playlist, one you built years ago, song by song, the way you only do when music feels like it's keeping you alive. One of them comes up. You know this song. You used to need this song. Your thumb moves before you've decided and you skip it. Not because it's bad, not because you're sick of it. You skip it because the person who needed it isn't here anymore, and listening feels like wearing someone else's coat. That's the first one. The first death you didn't notice until just now. There's a group chat. You don't mute it. That would be a decision, and you never made one. It just got quieter inside you. The names still appear, the voice messages, the inside references that used to feel like a warm room. Now they feel like dispatches from a country you used to live in. You're glad they're happy. You're also somewhere else entirely, and neither of those things cancels the other out. And then there's a note in your phone, or something in an old notebook, tucked in a drawer you haven't opened in 2 years. The handwriting doesn't belong to you. The timestamp says your name, but the year feels like it exists in someone else's biography. You read the sentences and they're full of plans. Careful, specific plans. Laid out like a floor plan for a house that was going to be built. You were going to be someone by now. Not famous, not perfect, just settled. Just arrived. The version of you in that note had it figured out in a way the current version doesn't. Had a cleaner life. A cleaner answer when someone asked how things were going. Had already done the thing. Had stopped circling. That person never existed. Not for a day. Not even for an afternoon. But you've been measuring yourself against them for years. Falling short of someone who was never there to be fallen short of. Carrying the weight of a standard set by a ghost you invented when you were someone else entirely. Someone who believed, with complete confidence, that the future had a fixed shape and you were heading toward it. You scroll past the note, or close the notebook, or just sit there for a second with it in your hands. If the version of you who wrote that never existed, not really, not the way you imagined, then what exactly have you been mourning all this time? And it keeps going. The faster you look, the more there are. The opinion you used to hold loudly that you can't remember dismantling. The city you were definitely going to move to. The creative thing you did constantly and then just stopped. The version of you that texted back immediately, that planned things, that meant it when they said, soon. None of these felt like loss when they happened. Each one felt like nothing, or like moving on, or like growing up. The accounting only happens later. When you sit still long enough to count. You've been leaving people behind this whole time. The problem is, they all had your face. Someone says it at dinner, not cruelly, not even carefully, just the way you'd describe the weather. You've changed. And they're already moving on, reaching for their wine, laughing at something someone else said. But you're still back there, in that sentence, turning it over. Because they didn't say it wrong. They said it the way you'd tell someone their haircut looks different. Observational, benign. They weren't trying to give you anything, but you received it like a condolence, like something wrapped carefully and handed across the table by someone who didn't know they were holding it. You've changed, as if the person they remember is somewhere they can point to, as if you left them behind, not the other way around. And the worst part, the part you don't say out loud, is that you know exactly which version they mean. The one who would have ordered the thing you almost ordered tonight. The one who laughed louder. The one who had opinions about things you've quietly stopped caring about. You knew her. You knew him. That person was real, completely real. And you can't explain, sitting there with your hands around your glass, that you didn't choose to leave. You just kept waking up, and the distance grew. But you can't explain any of that at dinner. So you smile, and the smile fits almost perfectly. Close enough that no one notices the gap. You've gotten good at that, the almost fit. Good enough to stop noticing it yourself, most of the time. One morning you're standing in your kitchen, and you pick up your phone, and you don't know why you feel this heavy. And nothing happened, and you're fine, and you can't explain it to anyone because there's nothing to point to. No event, no date. Nothing anyone would recognize as a reason. You've been carrying something for a long time. Something with no name, which made it harder to put down. Because you can't set something down when you don't know what you're holding. The skipped songs. The plans in a voice you don't recognize. The smile that almost fits. The version of you someone told a story about last week while you sat there and nodded. You already know what this is. Grief. Not the grief with a funeral. Not the grief that gets casseroles and cards and a week off work, the other kind. The kind that has no witness, no ritual, no socially recognized window for feeling it. The kind the world has no protocol for. Mourning someone who was you. You back at the table, same light, same people. Someone is telling the story again, the one about you. The one they always tell, the one where you did that thing that was so completely, perfectly you. They're pointing across the table with a fork, building to the punchline, and everyone already knows it's coming, and they're already starting to laugh. You smile. You know exactly when to smile. But the person in that story, the one who did that thing, who was so recognizably, specifically themselves, doesn't quite live here anymore. They left sometime in the last few years. Quietly. No announcement. The people at this table haven't noticed, or maybe they have and it doesn't quite have language yet, and so the story keeps getting told the same way, and you keep smiling at exactly the right moment, and the warmth is real, and the love is real, and something underneath all of it is very, very still. You are being loved as someone who no longer exists. And you understand now why the love doesn't quite land the way it used to. It's not that it's wrong. It's addressed to someone else. Someone who shared your name and your face and your laugh, who sat in this exact chair
who did the thing in the story. Someone gone in the way that every version of you is always gone. Without a date, without a ceremony, without anyone raising a glass. Every version that died. The one with the plan, the one with the certainty, the one with the imagined future that turned out to belong to someone who was never coming. They're all gone. But you kept waking up the next morning. You kept sitting down at the table. You kept wearing the smile that almost fits. Something in you has survived every single one of those departures. And you can feel it right now. The way you can feel a room is warm before you touch the walls. The story reaches its punchline. The table laughs. You laugh too, and this time the laugh is almost not performed at all. You're still here. Not the version they're laughing with. Not the version you were planning to become. Not the imagined future self who was finally supposed to have it figured out. The warmth of the room is real. So is the distance. Neither cancels the other.